Welcome to the Embodiment Podcast. This show is for you if you see the body as more than a brain taxi. It's for people interested in coming home to the body as a holistic aspect of who we are and how we live. Episodes contain practical tips, exercises you can take away, and interviews with specialists from around the world. I'm your host for today, Mark Walsh. On the show today, Eric Paskel. So Eric is one of the least wanky people in yoga. He is a lot of fun, extremely experienced yoga teacher. He keeps it real. He's probably the only person I'll have on the show who's more brash and more rude than me. Don't let that fool you though. He's really got an in-depth yoga background. So Eric, namaste, motherfucker.
Namaste, NMF. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. Be nice to talk to you. Wow.
It is so good to talk to you. Last time you were teaching on one of my online courses, you got very good feedback and we just had a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to a slightly raucous, riotous time today.
Well, it's already starting off much better. I had pre-podcast anxiety here because, as you remember last time, I have I have thin attention span. I read half and quarter emails at a time. And so when it came down for my interview or my teaching last time around, I had no idea how to get a hold of anybody. I mean, I basically went on Facebook Live. I think I wound up defaulting to that and then just talking for an hour, and God only knows how I made it through. But I'm glad it was well received. It was a fun challenge, and more importantly, we have contact and we're speaking this time. So I don't have to speak into the phone to nobodyness, which is great.
That was a rough gig. So listen, how did you get into this stuff? Like, what was the beginning of your journey into yoga?
Misery, really. It's funny. My parents are coming here in a couple of days. I'm in LA right now for a wedding of a cousin, and my mom was looking for some pictures of some of the family in California. She came across a picture of me, and she sent it, and I sent a note back. I said, it's funny because I was smiling in the picture. I said, it's so funny. I'm looking at myself with this smile. I don't remember ever smiling as a kid.
Wow.
And she said, oh, honey, that always makes me so upset. And I said, well, it's your fault. You should be. And, then I hate when you say that. I can mess with my mom so well. I said, of course, Mom, it's not your fault, whatever, And, but that was my experience of my own self-image was so negative. Even on Facebook the other day, someone posted our third grade elementary school picture, and I was with my kid, and I said, oh my God, pick out me. And she said, Dad, is this the phase when you look like a girl? I said, don't say that or you will get whacked. And I said, yes, this is my EP, I look like a girl phase, which also made me miserable because when people say you're so pretty, you look like a girl, it's not a cool thing for a guy to hear. So I had this wild image. I started talking to people in my third grade class, and they thought I was the greatest thing in the world. And I have memories of me being the worst, rottenest kid in the class. I got in trouble all the time. I was mean to everybody. So I don't know. It just started off in the gate really bizarre for me and uncomfortable. And after a long period of research into robbing and stealing and drugging and selling and hurting myself and others.
I'm just going to interrupt you today repeatedly because you're as loudmouth as me, so I'll just jump in. I love how you call that research. That's great. Like, is it sort of like researching ways to find happiness, right?
Right. Exactly. I mean, to me, it was I was miserable. And there's a lot of shit out there in the world. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. This world is, you got to think of it this way. All of us, whoever's listening, yoga, whatever the fuck you're into, it doesn't matter. We're humans. And every fucking human being has to at least at some point ask themselves this couple important questions. One is, what the fuck am I really doing? Like, what am I really doing? How am I going to live my life? It's not what am I doing as a profession, but how am I going to live this life? I have a life to live. I'm the only creature that can ask that. The other question is, why is it that I'm always wanting something? Because whether you're an addict or not, everybody everyone crutches on the world. Addiction is nothing but using something.
Yeah.
To the point of not having it creates agitations, bothers, and weird behaviors. Who isn't an addict?
Yeah.
You take a TV show away from someone and they freak the fuck out.
Yeah, you take a kid's toy away, you take an adult's job
away.
You
take the kid's toy, everything. I mean, it's hysterical that there's actually a label that someone's an addict and someone's not because of their use of, I don't know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever, when everyone is an addict in their own way. Everyone has to have something other than themselves. Ourselves is not enough for us. And no one really asked. That's weird.
Yeah.
Why is this? I mean, except for food and shelter and that stuff, it's like, why am I not satisfied? Why is there no contentment?
Which is your favorite, sex, drugs, or rock and roll?
Good question. Well, I guess it depends what time in life. I mean, I guess, it's interesting, but I'll be damned if rock and roll might not be my favorite above everything, because it always gives me a great feeling. It never gives me a problem.
Does your wife know this?
No, I thank God she's not home right now and can't hear me. Although, I mean, last night there was, her and I have just an epic, healthy chemistry. I've never had a good sexual chemistry with someone who's healthy. Like my greatest sex experiences have been with like the sickest, fucking craziest human beings whom we have terrible issues with and the best sex.
Yeah, I feel.
I mean,
I can totally relate to that. It's so nice to meet someone that it's like, wow, we have great chemistry, and you're a decent human being, and we treat each other well.
Right. We listen to each other, we respect each other, we give each other. I mean, we're there for each other, and we fuck like wild animals. Wow, I didn't really know that was possible. I thought you had to just kind of make a choice. And for a lot of people who are listening, I'm sure they're thinking the same thing, because that is a dynamic psychologically that is real and exists out there. You have those quiet, soft, kind of really nice, sweet relationships, but they're vanilla. They're kind of boring. And one partner usually starts to get restless and feels unfulfilled. Yeah. Then you have these explosive, fiery relationships where one partner eventually can't handle all the madness any longer. It's just not worth it. And that wildness escalates and it's unhealthy. So it's really nice, at least for today, so far 4.5 or so years in, to have this. I love talking to you because the funny thing is I know you know it and I know it. You asked me a question and I'm still going to answer that fucking question. What got me? But we're going all over the place and I love it. This is what I do with my best of friends, and you and I don't even know each other. So we're already there yet. So
you were like a screw up kid and you were finding, researching misery, and you kind of started to think, okay, what the fuck am I actually doing here? Like that, I remember that question when I was real high and real drunk again, and just going, hang on a minute, there's got to be something more. What else? This isn't making me happy. What else is there? So how did that kid find?
There was a certain time. Well, there was a certain point, and it all happened to me really, really young. That a couple things were happening. One, my acceleration in my drug use was like 0 to 100 immediately. So by the time I was 13 years old, I was selling and robbing and stealing and, not going to school and just doing crazy, crazy stuff. And so by the time I was about 17, I was thrown out of school. I was held up at gunpoint. I was tied up and beat, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I'm a white Jewish kid from an affluent family in the suburbs of Michigan. And I'm hanging around in Detroit in the ghetto. Yeah. And I don't know how I didn't get. They were so amused with me. I think they just wanted to keep me alive because they couldn't believe, that I had the balls to hang out there. But I felt at home there because I felt so displaced for so long that just going to the shittiest place on earth finally felt like home for a minute. But, I don't know about you, but for me, there was always it wasn't always, but around 16, 17 years old, when I really started hurting people that I cared about, and when I really started doing things I told myself I would never do, I felt this inner discomfort even with that. So now I was miserable on top of miserable because there was something that kept telling me, man, this is bad. And I couldn't stop myself. And there's nothing more scary. There's nothing more scary that I've ever gone through than just simply being in my own head and knowing that I didn't own my life anymore.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, that feeling, I never, ever, I make mistakes. I still get impulsive in ways. I know it means perfect, but I'm in control of myself. And I never want to feel that again. I mean, it was so horrible. And I feel for so many people that are there. And the thing is, it's just a mind fuck, right? I mean, it's true in the moment, but it's not like you can't do something about it. But in that moment, it feels like you're done. There's nothing you can do. So
the worst torture is not having things done to you. It's doing them and knowing they're wrong things to do. That is
exactly
real torture and the real tragedy when I see people that are caught in patterns of addiction, whether that's named as that or not, is doing it and going, fuck, I could do something, like knowing deep down, I could do so much better than this.
100%. When I'm working with, I had to do it for myself. I had to realize this for myself. And when I'm working with people, because I'm a therapist as well, I'm a marriage, family, child therapist. I didn't know if you know that, but I see, I deal with people that have been sexually, physically abused, emotionally. I've been abused in all those ways myself. But the realization of when the abuse stopped, I hurt myself 10 times more than anybody ever hurt me.
Mm.
I mean, just reliving it in my head, all the things I did to try to get out of myself. So in the end, you're our worst enemies. That's why one of the reasons why I like, the yoga philosophy in so many ways is because, it references such deep truths, that you're your only enemy. Man alone is his friend. Man alone is his enemy. It is, it's up to you. You're your best friend or your worst nightmare, but you'll never get a better friend than yourself, and you'll never have a worse enemy.
Yeah.
In your life, you are designed as a human being to be able to make that choice. What do you want to be? Your own best friend or your worst nightmare? So, I guess that, what was happening for me is I was breaking down, and finally my parents threw me out of my house, and it was the best thing they could ever done for me. And I kind of had to completely fend for myself. I was living in an attic of my friend's house, whose parents were divorced. So his mom wasn't around a lot. She was working full time, and I had just gotten thrown out of school. It was my senior year of high school, so I wasn't going to graduate. And, I still have this kind of ego thing in me. And back then, it kind of helped me in a way. It was weird. I had this big bravado always that nothing could hurt me and no one could fuck with me, the whole thing. And meanwhile, I'm just the most insecure, neurotic human being on the face of the earth. But when I got thrown out of my house and wasn't going to school anymore and really was running out of money, I owed all these people money because drug deals gone bad and all kinds of stuff like that. I really started to feel like this isn't like I'm not cool. This isn't like I had enough in my head that said, this is not cool. So what I thought about was I need to go. My parents said, look, you want to come back home? No problem, but you're going to treatment center. So I thought to myself, all right, look, I got to figure this out. Maybe treatment center will teach me how to sell drugs properly, how to use them properly, and I could be successful at this. Because I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I didn't know that treatment centers were about not using drugs anymore. I had just zero idea. I thought they were going to help me get it together. So I called my folks, and long and the short is I went into this treatment center, and within 24 hours, a light went on that hadn't been on before. And I mean, it truly was, I didn't really trust it at the time myself necessarily. Of course, none of my counselors did. They thought I was full of shit. But, I was just like, I got it. I get it. I 24. I stayed there 30 days. I loved every second of it. But what I loved about it and what I got was I was around for the first time in my life, human beings having real conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that that's all I really craved. I had a deep sense of how full of shit everybody is. And it's not anybody's fault. We got no one to blame. I mean, you blame your parents, they blame theirs, and it just keeps going up. And who's the first guy that fucked all this up? I have no idea. But the blame needs to be taken off of anybody, and we just need to own and start talking real about how we feel, and not being ashamed of it, and then not having to go to great lengths to be pretentious and cover it up so that other people feel like, wait a minute, no one's talking about it, so maybe it's just me. And we just live in this vacuum next to each other with everyone who really wants to have the same conversation, and no one has the balls. That's why I love what you're doing, to start to fucking have it. Just have it. We don't have to agree on shit. We don't have to figure out and be so deep. It's just be a human.
Yeah. And I've heard such honesty from people in recovery because, you know, as I say, like, being real here, actually, my life depends upon this. It's like bullshit got me into some really dark places. And even though there's a cost to kind of speaking the truth and being direct with people, there's also a huge benefit in terms of the friends you make and the people you can be around. And the cost of not doing that for me is just way higher now.
I'm with you. It's the same thing. And that really got me on the path of, you know, what I call introspection, an introspective life. It's more like, it's a life where, of course, I'm swept away every day to some degree, sometimes way more than I'd ever would like or wish or can believe that I still do, with all this knowledge behind me in the externals. But generally speaking, my life is dedicated every day to the betterment of me. It's not about what everybody else is doing. It's about looking at what Eric's doing and how do I really become a better Eric? Because I know the other guy. You know, we all know the one part of ourselves very well. We know the story so well. We know exactly what's going to happen time and time again if we choose to listen to that one voice. But for me, I started kind of getting excited, like, well, you know, I know what this Eric would do, but what would the Eric do if he wasn't an immature, egotistical, insecure asshole? What would he do instead of someone saying to him, you know, I don't like you and I don't like your classes and I don't like this and I don't, instead of calling them names or one-upping them in, you know, intellectually, or shaming them in some way, you know, with words of wisdom and a shameful, what would this other guy do?
You know,
that's who I want to keep exploring.
I like this version of like, hey, if I was just being a friend to myself right now, how would I be? Or to say to students or clients, you know, like how would you talk to yourself if you were a friend? How would you treat yourself if you were a friend? Because most people know what it is to be a friend, you know, like even pretty bad guys have friends. So it's like taking that outside position and just acting as if you were a friend or as if you could operate from that better part of yourself. And then all of a sudden you are. And it's like, oh, fuck, look at that.
And it's so simple, but in the moment, I mean, there's just been so many circumstances that I've had. I mean, and who doesn't? It's life. It's like, as long as you're in life, we are all exposed to what it is. And there's all kinds of peaks and valleys, ups and downs and twists and turns. It's just what life is. And to be able to go with those ebbs and flows is something that was really, 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 really hard for me. And so I was always fighting something or someone, or feeling like I'm getting fucked, or feeling like I'm not getting something, or I'm going to lose something. I mean, I just didn't have the capacity to deal with the comings and the goings. And it just, those things are life. So, you know, once I started getting interested in how to deal with that stuff, my life became different. And that just that put me on a path and eventually led me to yoga. I mean, to be really honest, my first yoga class was in maybe 1993. I went to an old friend of mine was teaching. He's a real big yoga teacher. His name is Brian Kess, a great guy, just a maverick of a yoga teacher for the whole yoga world, and travels across the world. I went to his class and I lasted 10 minutes. I rolled up my yoga mat. I screamed to him across the room, "Go fuck yourself," and I left.
You literally
because in those, yep. I walked in with, I mean, I was in the best shape of my life. I was in my 20s in LA. I was still acting in those days. And all I did was play hockey and fuck around and work out and whatever. I walk into this class, I take my shirt off because it's hot in there. And I'm thinking I'm just going to kill this whole thing. And I'm from the first moment, I think child's pose. I was like, my knees were killing me. The tops of my feet were aching. Everyone's quiet. I'm looking around the room. I'm judging everything he says. I'm getting super agitated. By 10 minutes in, I was ready to literally carve someone's heart out and eat it. I was violent. I hated him. I mean, I didn't know what was happening. So I just said, "Fuck off." And he said, "Fuck you." And then that was that. I walked out of the class.
Yeah. And
3 years, 4, what was it, 5 years later? Something like that. I mean, it took me forever to get another yoga class because all I knew at that point was, it was the way I was thinking. I used to think that if I didn't like something, it wasn't cool. I was the aficionado and there was something wrong with it. I never thought about there could be something wrong with me to that level. I just didn't think about it. I was like, wow, that was terrible, man. What was he saying? What were they doing? Those people were strange and holding those poses. And I didn't think about, why are you agitated?
Yeah. I see that in addicts that, like everyone else is, even if they're still in early recovery, like everyone else is wrong. Like the problem is not me. It's not my fault. Everyone else is to blame. This is shit. The world is unfair. Everything is bullshit. And then it's like, at some point there's that turning in and going, okay, what's my part in this? Like, in what way am I actually responsible here?
I know it's that externalization always. And it seems like it's the most foreign concept to think that it could be you when you're absolutely so convinced about how everybody else is. And it's not that we're wrong necessarily.
Yeah. There's usually,
that's the thing. It's not that we're wrong. It's like, my dad's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And that's real. And he's a narcissist and it's real. And he's crazy and it's real. But it's my problem. Why? The thing is, it's like, why can't I deal with that? Now, there's a lot of people who be like, yeah, well, that's really hard to deal with. But again, that goes back to the guy I wanted to be. I wanted to stop bitching about it and go, why is it I can't deal with this? So what? In fact, since I know what he is, I should be able to deal with this perfectly. The reason why I can't deal with these things is because I want people to be the way I want them to be. For me, because I'm not the way I want to be. See, to me, when you're wishing, hoping, and praying for the world to be different,
yeah,
it's the most selfish, narcissistic thing in the world. You want it to be different. Why? For you, because you can't handle it.
Yeah.
You want the whole fucking world to change. I want the whole fucking world to change because Eric Paskel can't handle it. I want my father to change because he's not the father I want to be. So I stopped asking myself, I stopped saying, this is the dad I want. And I started saying, what kind of son can I be? What kind of son can it be? And between recovery and really the yoga put it, the way in my recovery and even from therapy for years, I still was missing a certain language and a dialogue and a philosophy that was helping me really understand what in the hell was going on with me. How could I have so much information that's just awesome and wise and wipe my ass with it when it came time to using it? How is it that I could be an expert on everybody else's life and be all fucked up in my own? I thought I was going crazy. I just didn't know. So when I finally really fell into yoga, and yoga isn't, it's why this whole saying that I said went viral. I mean, people think it's a joke, but it's real. Yoga is not about, tightening your ass. It's about getting your head out of it. Yoga's about.
That was my first contact with you. I saw that meme of you doing warrior pose with that quote on it, and I thought, no, this guy's real, and I agree with him. It's not about telling your ass, it's about getting your head out of your ass, because there'd been so much up to that point in the yoga world of getting the kind of perfect yoga body and looking good. And I imagine LA was even worse than here. And it was like, okay, here's someone just saying it in a kind of humorous way and saying it straight, not saying, well, maybe it's this or that, it's different things, different people, just someone saying it straight. No, it's fucking not that.
Exactly. I mean, really, in its essence, it's yoga. Yoga is it's an emotional and intellectual discipline that has some exercise to it. So imagine if AA or any of these 12-step programs had exercise in them. How fucking ridiculous would that be?
Yeah.
But then imagine if the exercise became 99% and actually working a step was basically unheard of. Having a sponsor was unheard of. By the way, bro, this is the first time I'm ever saying this. You just brought this out of me, so thank you, because this is good shit.
It's a nice yeah,
not to toot my horn, but this is the wisdom you just brought up. This is like, wow, I'm getting a vision of this. Imagine if to me, 12-step programs it's just a shame you got to put a certain label to be in any one of them, because they're the softest, easiest gateway entrance into a welcoming home to your humanity. And they're just, I mean, you really and truly, you have to be so twisted to not feel at home with a bunch of people that want nothing else except to love on you, support you, and just say, thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the greatest place in the fucking world. So yes, is it missing a lot of, it wasn't built to have all the answers. It wasn't built for people to be each other's therapists or spiritual advisors. It wasn't built for that. It was really built for one of the tenets that yoga was built on, which is called satsang. Sat is in the company and song is in the good. Being the company of good, like-minded people that got your back, that, you know, someone once said, what's a friend? Someone who knows you and loves you anyway. So these are people that know you. They love you anyways. They command you to be your best, but they accept you at your worst. The door's always open. It's a great place. So what happened when yoga was the same kind of thing. It had a ton of teachings and a ton of principles and a ton of different disciplines. And what happened was most people, it's too heady. It's just too much for people.
Yeah.
And so the yogis were like, wow, this is over everybody's head. What are we going to do? So they figured out a system of torture techniques, which are called asana or postures, to put together to torture people into kind of waking themselves up. And you get in a certain shape, because the thought was, if you can't physically be in control of your own body, if you can't keep that together, then you can't do anything. This is the most basic thing as a human being. I mean, a dog can lick its ass, its balls, it shits, it fucking eats, it takes care of itself. You know, only reason why a dog ever gets too fat is because of its fucking owner.
Yeah.
So all animals, you never see, there's no 12-step programs in the animal kingdom. There's no lions or zebras underweight or overweight. And if they're underweight, it's only because we fucked up the whole ecosystem and they don't have enough food. But naturally, they don't need regulation. They got built-in programs that they just run the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
But they can't ever be exceptional. We can be exceptional, but we have to really work on it. And without that work, we're worse than animals. We're more destructive. We're more violent. We're more chaotic and impulsive. It's a shit show.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, so that's all that yoga was. But what happened was when they introduced the exercise, and you can relate to this, people started getting off on that and getting attached to it and never even going into really the sap, the heart of what yoga is about. So now you have these people that are actually teaching. I mean, it'd be like, I mean, I don't mean to insult, because I do this, but I'm going to tell you why I do this and how I can do this. It'd be like a kindergarten teacher teaching everyone kindergarten education and saying, this is the full education. This is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
This is all there is. This is it. When you're just a kindergartner. I teach kindergarten. I have yoga classes. I teach physical yoga, but that's what I say it is. tell people every day, it's a great fucking exercise. That's what we're doing. But if you're interested in ever growing and doing and really practicing yoga, you ain't going to find it in my yoga class. How the fuck can I teach it to you? I'm playing rock and roll. I'm fucking trying to entertain your ass because you're so fucking distracted all the time. I'm trying to say a few decent things that you might actually think about. I have to put my prices so cheap because your ass doesn't want to pay for shit. And God forbid anybody says anything real, you're scared. So how am I going to do anything in this classroom?
Yeah.
That's all this is kindergarten.
And you're at the epicenter.
But you have the rest of people, especially in the UK, man. You guys got it out there too, big time. I've seen it.
It's everywhere, but it started in LA. That was the home of celebrity yoga. You got to admit, man, that was where it.
Yes.
That celebrity culture of fucking Hollywood, and you marketing savvy motherfuckers. You got right under the edges.
You're right. It was funny because when I would look into yoga in the UK, because I've gotten a few calls to come there or whatever. At first, some years ago, it's changed now. There's some different stuff that's much more liberal and kind of out there, and at least hits a different kind of person. But it was UK yoga was like UK. It was very, very technical and very, very, very like
Iyengar.
Yes, and and it's like, if you don't do it this way, you're just a low class citizen, and it just cracked me up.
Well,
and I was one of the first. Out here to kind of mix that up too, because it was a joke. I mean, think about it. Just think about it. Okay, so I do this yoga pose perfectly. What's supposed to happen?
Yeah.
Then what?
So I make the perfect shape that's in the Iyengar book, or there's an Ashtanga primary series, get to the end of the first series or whatever. And then what happens? What magic miracle occurs?
Exactly. And that's why when I first took yoga also, I was freaking out, because I eventually went back to it because I moved to Michigan and I was freaking out and going through a divorce. And I went to a yoga class because someone said, come to yoga. And I said, you know what? I hated it so much. There must be something good for it in me. And I did a 90 and 90. I went to 90 classes in 90 days. Well, one of the things that's how I had to do it, because if I didn't do it that way, I wouldn't have made it. I knew I had to commit and I had to figure out, why do you hate this? And guess what? I hated it for a lot of reasons that were all about me. I mean, wow, did I really find out some stuff about me on that yoga mat? And that is a beautiful benefit of the physical kind of yoga. That's there. That is real. There's some awareness that happens. It's very important. But the ceiling is very low in your growth after that. Okay, so you realize some things, like there's only so much to do. I mean, there's so much more when you're in a program where you're sharing about thoughts and feelings, and you're structured by a certain roadmap of how to live your life on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Coming to classes and practicing yoga. Being vegan isn't practicing. What do you practice yoga? Yes. What's your practice? I'm vegetarian, and I go to, yoga schmoga in the heart of the village. What the fuck is that? That's not yoga. That's not a yoga practice. It's not at all a yoga practice.
Eric, come on, let's stop bitching here. Like, what is a good, solid yoga practice to you now? It's more than just the shapes. It's more than the, looking good in the Lululemon. What is a really solid yoga practice to you now?
Very, very good question. A solid yoga practice. And, if I hadn't had therapy and I hadn't been AA forever and ever, I wouldn't have known that there had to be something more in this. And I wouldn't have gotten here based upon the education I was getting in yoga, because no one was talking about it. And I was asking questions because of my education. So the practice is it's a threefold practice, right? Number one, any practice that you have in life, it doesn't matter. You could be spinning. It could be a physical practice, a mental, a spiritual. We need teachers. I don't know what it's like in the UK, but Americans are the biggest cocksuckers when it comes to teachers. We are so fucking brutish and arrogant, and we refuse. We'll have a mentor because it sounds better, and a mentor will eventually use up and spit out once we've learned all we can, and then we'll take over his business or fuck his wife or do whatever we need to do. but it's very difficult for Americans to be like, no, I'm a real student. That involves humility and respect and surrender, not to somebody really, but for myself. Like, I need to do that for me. I don't surrender to the teacher because the teacher's the greatest thing in the world. I surrender because if I don't do it, I'm fucked. So one, we have to be a student. That's where it all starts. And to be a student, you have to know that you don't know everything. You have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to work. You have to be willing to do the things that you don't like to do. I have a saying, do the things you don't like to do. Go where you don't want to go. Say what you don't want to say. Hear what you don't want to hear. And in the end, you'll land in the place you always wanted to be. And how do you get there? Through doing all these things you never wanted to do.
Yeah, first thing
so it's that. Go ahead.
First thing is being teachable, isn't it? That I say to people at the beginning of all seminars and workshops, I said, look, if you know everything already, you're in the wrong place. And I make a joke about it. And I sometimes I'm in a bad mood. I just say, look, if you know everything already, can you just fuck off now? Because I'm in no mood for it. It's kind of like either as a joke or as a threat. I'm sort of saying, look, I'm not going to tolerate this, and don't be that person. Or I might say, you know what? We all know that jerk who comes to workshops and knows everything already. And I've been that jerk, so I know him thoroughly. I know him inside out. And I just I put a warning shot across the bow saying, don't do that, because without that basic teachability, there's no point.
Agreed, and I love it. It's brilliant. I swear to God, you and I think you're the UK version of me and vice versa. I'm the American version of you, because there's just so much synergy and your attitude and your ethos, the whole spiel. I love hearing it. And I feel the same way. And really, I really mean this. I've also been lucky to be around some really good people, and I've also studied. So part of the practice, the really good practice, is you're a student, and in being a student, you begin to learn when you start to read about. And I want to de-yogify this so anyone listening can really get this, because this is the program for anybody. You have to dial in the specifics for yourself, but you get to this point where you realize I want to be teachable, and I want my day to be shaped in a way that it's not about what I got and what I didn't get and how hard I worked and what deal I put together or how much playtime I got for myself. It's got to be deeper than that. And that's, if you're listening to Mark and you're listening to me, you must have an ear for this already. So I know I'm preaching to the choir. So for all of us, our days are we've got to rest our minds somewhere higher than all of the mundane shit that goes on. Because at the end of the day, and I'm sure you've had this happen, Mark, you've gotten things you've wanted. I've lived some huge dreams of mine, and I'm so happy I have, not to live the dream, but to understand the dream was nothing. It was a fantasy. Yeah, it all came true, and it did nothing for me.
So there was
literally nothing.
Yeah, there was this time
except terrify me.
Yeah, the things I used to want. Like, for example, I was in Brazil, and I thought, if I just drunk enough beer and fucked enough girls, I'll be happy. And then I was in this situation in Brazil where both of those things were essentially on tap, and I was able to see through it and go, you know what, this is what I wanted, and I've got it. And it hasn't made me happy. And there's that seeing through the worldly winds, as Buddha said.
Absolutely. Even when we get into the noble ones, I want to have once I got into yoga, it was I want to open all these studios. I had 11 yoga studios and hundreds of people working with me, for me, and with me, and whatever, and traveling around and all this stuff. And it was and I wanted a wife. I wanted a kid. I got all those things, and I began to see, oh my God, one, this list is never going to end. Back to the first question, why is it that I keep wanting things and I'm never just satisfied? And two, now I'm getting these things, and really life is kind of just the same. Sure, I could please myself more. I could buy something fancier. I could have some more space, but I'm still in my same head. I'm still in my same body. I'm still in the same world. It's just such a bizarre thing. This is why, you know, so many celebrities and athletes or whatever just go out of their minds because they get everything they want and they still don't have what they really want. So we're looking at this thing like, okay, we need a teacher. We need a teacher that's part of this. Now, sometimes that doesn't come for a while, but one of the practices during every day for me is I get up in the morning and I'm reading. I'm studying philosophy. It's Vedanta. It's just an ancient philosophy, and it encompasses all of the yoga teachings essentially. But essentially, when I say teachings, all I'm doing is I'm reading about how a human being can be living a life where we're comfortable in our own skin and we're free, where the knocks and shocks in the world don't get us anymore, where people can love us and we're cool, they can hate us and we're cool, whether it's hot or cold, honor or dishonor, we're the same temperature. And that inspires me because I'm not that way. And so I don't really know many people that way. I know like a couple people that are that way. And so we are forced as human beings to really read about them, because for you, Mark, and for me too, right? People look at me as a teacher. They call me teacher. And I do my best to play that role because I need to play it for myself, and that person needs me to play it. And I take that shit so seriously. However, that's a fucking joke, dude. If I'm your teacher, if I'm your therapist, you're fucked. You're in deep trouble. Because yes, compared to everyone else in the world who's blind, maybe I can see out of one eye, but that's sad. You know, that's really sad. When I read about what it is to be a supreme human being, I'm fucking nowhere in the area code. I'm not in that country. I'm nowhere near it. I'm nowhere near it, bro. I mean, but I can say that with an open heart, and I can say that being inspired, not being down on myself, because I wake up every day and I read about these creatures, and I read about this philosophy and what life's really about. And then I go out there and I see myself gripping every day and losing it and fighting for it. So I'm really glad that I'm in the struggle, and I'm really proud of myself that I've been, you know, I've drug myself out of certain gutters. But compared to the Mark, it's like if you were a tennis player, I mean, you might say you're a great tennis player, and then I go, hey, how are you compared to Federer? Are you even a tennis player? Should you even have a racket in your hand? So this is one of the practices, and it's so important because in our business life, in our sex life, everywhere in our life, other than our real, as a human being in our real life, we have people to look at that exemplify what we want to be. Mm-hmm. You can find the most successful business person. You can find the best therapist. You can find the best sportsman. But who is the best really human being? And I've seen some of these people behind the scenes. You know, every one of my teachers, and I've had beautiful teachers, except for the last one, every one of them was distinctly human after studying and learning from them. And they were beautiful people, but they were so broken, just like me. They had a gift to teach. They had a gift for knowledge, and they had a big mind fuck and able to really live it in their lives. And I started to think this is what life is about. We all learn this stuff. We do our best, and all of us are fucked. Till I happened to come across somebody that wasn't like us, which has been really cool. But otherwise, for everybody, we got to read about this stuff. The second thing is, it's a spirit, Mark. It's just like, to keep it really simple, it's a spirit of service every day. That's all you have to have. That's part of a real yoga practice. It's the spirit of being of service. It's not like you have to give up your car. You can't fuck anymore. You know, you can't go to the bar and give up drink. It's not about giving something up. It's about taking something up higher. And the highest form of living is just having spirit, just letting your mind and your heart rest in being spirited, service oriented, like letting people cross the street and stopping. I'm not talking about like, you know, it's not heavy shit. Yeah. It's heavy because it's so simple. It's like everyone who's listening right now, just think about this. What do you think about most all day? And that tells you what kind of person you are. Just be honest. What do you think about? Where do your thoughts rest all day? and most people, all people, I mean, there's not going to be anyone that's different. Your mind's going to be resting on your family, your work, yourself in some way.
Yeah. Projects.
That's it. Your needs.
What can I get? Maybe a few people around.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. And even in helping people, I happen to like to help people. So I don't even know if I'm helping myself helping people sometimes because I like it. I get off on it.
Yeah, that's a funny one, isn't it? When you see the clarity of, if you've been meditating a while and you see your mind and you're like, wow, I'm only being nice so I get this nice feeling or the nice, I'm giving money to this homeless person because I want to feel good about myself. That's a real funny one to see through.
It always ends with me, like it all ends with like, and yes, Eric felt good about it. So I once asked my teacher, I told him, I said, I'm so fucked up. I'm like, I'm freaking out. And said, what's wrong? You're always freaking out. What the hell's wrong with you? And, and I told him, I said, like, I went through this whole thing about and helping people and doing this and doing that. And I feel like it's always selfish. And I don't know if it is or it isn't, or is it more selfish to do this? Or is it less selfish to do that? And he just looked at me, he goes, Eric, everything you do is selfish. And you have to understand that, number one.
Just the way of being.
And I was like, what?
Do you think you can just be at peace with that? Sorry, it's a bit of a time lag if it seems like I'm jumping in. Is there a way of just being at peace with, what? Everything we do is selfish and that's just how it is? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that was one for me. So when I get those zingers, they make me feel good actually because I get it. It's like, oh, okay. And it's because he made it okay. He's so beautiful. He's like, first of all, everything you're going to do has selfishness in it. There's no way you're going to do anything without selfishness in it. So all that you're trying, first of all, don't even worry about it. You're at some point you have to realize that, you're a good guy. So it is what it is. And, for him to say like, then he said to me, what he said, which was interesting. He said, it's funny you asked it. He said, you should just, one, everything's selfish. It's the first thing he said. Everything you're going to do is selfishness. So what's the big deal? You just have to look at what can I do that's the least amount of selfish? Then you have to look for opportunities that are uncomfortable for you. And that's when you have to share yourself in those areas, the areas that it's difficult, because that's where they're going to be the least amount of selfishness because they're not going to be preferential for you. So that made perfect sense. And I was like immediately in peace with that, like, got it. And then he said something to me that's fascinating. It's what makes him so different is, he said, Eric, in my whole life, I can't remember ever once thinking about the results of any of my actions.
Who is this?
I can never think about it. His name is Swami Parthasarathi. He actually comes to the UK quite a bit. P-A-R-A-T-H Partha, P-A-R-A-T-H A-R-A-S-A-R-T-H-Y. Long name. Swami Parthasarathi. Just in case you didn't get it, P-A-R-T-H-A-S, A-S-A-R-A-T-H-Y. A Parthasarathi. So it's a long story. It's another conversation. But when he said that, I freak out because it also makes me think of bigger things like, how I said I came into the world. I came into the world angry and pissed off. It's a miracle I'm alive. He tells me he can never remember once in his life ever thinking about results. And that's part of this service. So part of the practice and service is one of the misnomers in yoga or any kind of spiritual living is this thing about renunciation and giving things up. What you give up is giving a fuck about what you're getting for your action. You never give up your actions. Yes. You don't have to give up your material possessions. You don't have to give up your material possessions. You don't have to give up your desires. But you do give up. What we're trying to give up is caring, am I going to get it? Will I ever get it? What am I going to get for this? Once you renounce that, that's service. And I'm saying to you, I can't do that, but I aspire to do that daily. That's part of the practice. The other couple parts of the practice really after the service is another big concept, and it will sound cheesy and yogi, but it's just for everyone, is love. So your thoughts are kind of dwelling on, how do I serve? It's just a kindness. That's all it is. And then in your heart, there's a love. There's a love. It's not a preferential attachment. It's not a unilateral attachment. It's a universal love, meaning that no matter how you feel about me, Mark, I love you. Now, who the fuck can do that?
Yeah, it's a big ask.
Who the fuck loves anyone? You know why I like you, Mark? Really? Because you like me. You like my shit. I like your shit, so we like each other. We're kindred spirits, all that shit. You don't like my stuff, then I don't like you.
That's the challenge.
That's how it works.
It's like, yeah, this
It's
guy's
very challenging.
We got a similar view on yoga, therefore we like each other. That's the kind of easy one. And I've just been looking at this some great shit on your website. I've got your website up while we're talking here, but it just distracted me. Something just came up that I was googling this Swami guy, and it's like that's a pretty shallow basis for love, isn't it? Just okay, well, you like me and I like you.
Yeah, it's like, think about it this way. I mean, it's heavy shit, but it's like, would you love you? It's to love every child as you love your own. You have a different responsibility and duty, and I think people listening might have 1,000 questions. And if you do, seriously, just email me at eric@ericpaskel.com, because I'm going to say these things that I'm saying right now should push a lot of buttons in a lot of us, because it's like, it's big stuff and it busts us. It really cracks things wide open. It's like, our love isn't love at all. What we call love is it's just attachment, because what we're loving is how you make me feel. And then when you stop making me feel that way, I don't love you. Yeah,
it's just like a drug, using someone else as a drug. Eric, I just want to recommend your website to people. That's Eric Paskel, PASKEL.com, right? Are there any other sort of resources you want to point people to?
Yeah, sure. ERIC, that's ERICPASKEL.com, ericpaskel.com. You can go to the studio and kind of brand of yoga is called Electric Soul. It's electricsoul.yoga.
Great.
And if you want to get done with all of my bullshit, you can go to vedantaworld.org. That's VEDANTA.org. World.org. Vedantaworld.org. VEDANTA world.org. And that's my teachers. And I say that because he's just got a lot of lectures on there and a lot of cool stuff that could kind of, that's the source. That's the source. What I do is I because I'm me and because I'm where I'm at, I've taken all that stuff and kind of put it in my language, put it in a language, because there's a lot of people that, my teacher is very unrelatable to many, many people.
Yeah.
And he doesn't try to be relatable to everybody, because it's not, it's this kind of stuff isn't for everybody, but there's people like me that can make it for more people in different ways. So that's kind of my gig. But the relationship stuff is really big, and we haven't gotten into it, and maybe we won't. I mean, I have some more time to talk, so I'm not in any rush, but the love piece is huge. And when I say that, it's like, of course you're not going to go out and love everybody tomorrow. What does that even mean? How do I love the terrorist? How do I love? It's way too deep of a concept to try to explain right now. And it would be trying to explain rocket science to those of us that are just in arithmetic. It's taken me, 15 years of studying daily and traveling around the world and living in India forever under this guy's tutelage to even understand these concepts. Because I was like, are you crazy, motherfucker? Love everybody. What are you talking about? Yeah. How the fuck does that even, but then again, I have to calm down and see that my reaction to all that was the guy that I don't want to be. Wait a minute. That does sound like, is that even, let's start with this. Can I start even loving a few more people? Can I change my attitude towards how I feel generally about humans? Can I start looking at people more like brothers and sisters? That's where we have to start. Can I even forgive my family members? I don't even love this guy's talking about loving everyone, and I hate my fucking parents. Yeah. I hate my sister, or I hate my brother, so that's where I had to start. But you asked me about a practice, and this is what a practice is. It's like, I do go out there every day and I catch myself and I I really, really look at people and I watch myself and I try to psych myself up into feeling this general, this warmth. And, you know, man, I mean, when I get it just a little bit, it just goes such a long way. And it's so healthy for me. And I get in conversations I would never have with people, and I learn things I would never learn, and I feel better. That's the whole thing. I mean, when I say selfishness, right, Mark, it's like, in the end, of course, I'm doing this selfishly because I don't want to feel uncomfortable. I don't want to be stressed out. I don't want to have anxiety. So these are the tools to not have that. You can't. In fact, I mean, have you ever met someone who's productive and what's the word I'm looking, prosperous and at peace? You ever met a productive, prosperous person at peace? Everyone who produces has anxiety, has stress. And it seems like everyone who does nothing is cool. You know, third world people that are sitting on the side of the road and doing nothing, they seem peaceful. So if you're doing nothing, you have peace. And if you're doing something, you have stress. That isn't the way to live. So this is a kind of way of living where you have prosperity, and intense work is rest. And through the way you're working, you gain peace. That's why I'm saying these principles. It's not, we need to work, we need to go out there and do our thing, and we can. But if you do that with a spirit of service, if you have love in your heart every day, you're not interested in the results. You surrender, you have the teacher, you're using the world as your playground to learn and to grow from. What's going to get you? There's nothing that's going to get you. So those are two of the three principles. And then the third one really for a daily practice is there's a side note on what you're eating. I won't go off into lecturing, but I just say, look, what you're eating in terms of food-wise has to represent how you ultimately want to be living, right? I mean, I'm a sugar eater. I love sugar. I love it to death, but it doesn't own me. But I love it. But, you know, I'm not also restrictive, and I'm not going to eat sugar. But the point is what I'm eating and putting on my plate represents the kind of guy I want to be. There's love on my plate. There's respect on my plate. The amounts, even though I eat like an animal lots of times and way too much, I try to even work on that in ways just because I don't want to be someone who's indulgent and overdoing things. So I use even my mealtime as a way to look at and practice how I want to live, because we're always eating. I mean, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, we're going to Starbucks and doing that stuff. So I'm looking at those things, and I'm utilizing the world to remind me of who I really want to be for that. And then the last thing is really getting in touch with I talked about service in my studies and reading, but it's more of an intellectual thing, which I see that you've been doing a ton of yourself, because you always got your hands in something. I'm seeing your Facebook page, and you're asking questions, you're learning. Those questions you're asking, I don't know if you even realize how important they are, is that we have to question everything. It's not questioning from a dickhead point of view, like, you know, challenging people and being disruptive and argumentative. It's questioning yourself in the world at large every day. What's going on? If I'm listening to Eric and Mark right now and I like what they're saying, why? Why do I like it? Do I like it because it just jives with me? Do I like it because they sound cool? Do I like it because I like swearing and they swear a few times? We need to do research, and none of us do that. We don't do enough of it. We need to really research what life is, what life's about, what our likes are about, our dislikes about. We need to become experts on ourselves. And that's a practice, looking at ourselves every day and really examining ourselves under a microscope. It's not to be negative and it's not to be positive. It's just to be. It's to check ourselves out.
Eric,
we need to approach it with, yeah.
I've got a promise to my wife that I will see her before she goes out tonight. So I'm going to keep.
You must do that.
I love listening to you, but I love hugging her more. So I don't blame you. I'm gonna wrap this up. This has been epic, man. Like, it just feels like you've got so much to offer, and I like that you keep it real, and you keep this in a package which just makes sense, but you've still got that kind of depth and that you know, you're doing the research in terms of the kind of deeper things that are out there. And I'm just at ease with people like you who swear and keep it real. So I appreciate your time today, man.
I appreciate yours. Give that wife a big hug for me too. I look forward to meeting you in person, both of you, one day. And keep up the good work, man. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
A real pleasure. And you're always welcome in the UK at mine.
All right.
Subscribe to get more. And you can also leave us a review on iTunes, which helps with our rankings. So really appreciate that. Equally, if you want to support the podcast even more, then fund us. Go to Patreon. Give us $1 per episode. Those who don't know, Patreon's a really good way of supporting things you want to see more of in the world. I know like so much is available for free now, and you know what I'd say is a lot of energy and effort goes into this podcast. I put it out there for free so everyone can get it. You know, Maud and I work on this. Everyone that wants it can have it for free. And if you want to support us, it is really appreciated. So it's patreon.com/Mark Walsh. And of course, if you want any in-person training, you can visit embodiedfacilitator.com. There's loads more resources there too.
Till next time, welcome home to the body.